Good evening. Welcome to the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting for September 28, 2021. I'm going to call the roll in alphabetical order to establish a quorum. Nicole.
Here.
Michelle. Not here yet. Rodney. Not here yet. Jason.
Here.
Jennifer.
Here.
Robbie. Not here yet. Benji.
Here.
And Paul. Thought I saw Paul join. Let me see. Paul, I didn't hear you, but I see you on here. And Rodney, I'll go back and say your name. Rodney, you here?
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right. Having established a quorum, I hereby call the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. on September 28th, 2021. I'm going to go ahead and read the ethics statement. Conflict of interest reminder per North Carolina General Statute 138A-15E. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. Hearing none, if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Okay. Reading and approval of August meeting minutes. I know from Secretary Booker that those minutes are still being edited and prepared. So we will delay the reading of the August minutes until our October meeting.
And I just want to apologize for that. It's completely my fault. I will get them to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Nicole. Public comment. Brad, do we have anyone who would like to make a public comment?
I do not see anybody at this time, but like I said, give it a few seconds just in case because of the delay.
Sure.
I'll interrupt you and get your attention if somebody came home.
Okay. Also, Brad, oh, never mind. Michelle was saying she was having trouble joining, but it looks like she just joined. Okay, so go ahead and let me know, Brad, if anyone wants to make public comment. Guest discourse, Dr. Carpenter, you have some micro training for us, correct?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me do the share screen thing. Can't share your screen. Okay. I'm a Zoom user.
It should be in the yeah, there you go. Okay.
No, it's prompting me to open my system preferences. What is this? Google
Meets. Google Meets. And you should see the square with the arrow, the present now square. I mean the
If I click Google Chrome, will that do it?
I think you need I think he clicked exit the meeting. Let's give him a minute and see if he comes back. Otherwise, we will move on and have him back in a few. I know when you get used to one type of online virtual meeting, it's hard to adjust to the others as they all function slightly differently. So, Dr. Carpenter, are you back?
I'm back. That was about as convenient as it could possibly be, wasn't it?
Okay, so at the bottom of your screen, there should be a circle with a square and an arrow in it that if you hover over it, it says present now. That should be how you share your screen. There you go. Now we can see it.
Yep. As soon as I checked the box, it said, okay, it has to restart. So this evening, micro training session that Chairperson Jane and I collaborated on as far as what topic would be suitable for the board right now. I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit the 3 committee structures that I recommend. And you can have other committees if you want, but remember that I'm always placing the emphasis when the board has a committee, its purpose should be to provide oversight of management, not to be a participant in it. So, for example, I don't call it a finance committee, I call it a financial oversight committee. So the handout, by the way, the link, there's a link in the chat, little chat session there that I pasted in that'll take you to a landing page where you can grab this handout if you like. The governance committee, so it's kind of obvious. We all know what a governance committee does. Recruits new board members, screens them, interviews them, onboards them. In fact, I think some of actually, no, I started to say I think some of your folks were at a board orientation that I did recently, but I don't think that's right. Maintain the systematic oversight calendar, or the board secretary can do that. It doesn't have to be you all decide. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be this committee. Reviewing the bylaws, which is a project that is in progress right now, as far as I understand. Financial oversight committee. This is a biggie here. So, as I said, it's not a committee that's co-managing the school's finances. It's overseeing what management is doing with the school's finances. And what most finance committees, or as I call it, a financial oversight committee, fail to do is this line right here. The FOC does so chiefly by reviewing source documents such as bank and credit card statements to deter and detect fraud, waste, and abuse, especially at the school's senior management level. So in other words, this committee is the check and balance to Dr. Blackwell and her senior leaders. Giving an example of how badly the train can jump the tracks when a board isn't doing this, I read a case just this week, a school in Minnesota, a couple thousand students. The founder is the school leader, and she apparently, in violation of Minnesota statute, invested $5 million in a hedge fund. And of course, hedge funds are volatile like every other kind of thing, and they lost all but about $700,000 of that. So now the authorizer is calling for the board to fire the school leader. If that board had had a financial oversight committee, they'd have spotted that $5 million investment the day it was made. I just can't believe the magnitude of it. But anyway, the reason this right here, the source documents, is important is you can hide anything in a financial report. An income statement, a balance sheet, there's plenty of lines to bury anything, but it's a lot harder to hide when you're looking directly at those source documents. So this is the check and balance to senior management's activities, and of course to the school as a whole. You can also verify the quarterly payroll taxes. I recommend that because there have been cases of fraud where people's payroll taxes weren't being properly deposited, and so on and so forth. So I forgot to mention the minimum on the governance committee. That committee I really feel like can meet as needed. I don't really think that has to be a regular thing, but I do recommend that the finance committee meet every regular board meeting, or that it present at every regular board meeting on its activities. And then this is something that I am trying with all of my might to bring to the charter school world. This is what's killing us right here in the charter school world right now. It's not academics, it's this. Schools doing really just errors that could, of all kinds, that could be classified as not doing proper systematic risk management. And so this committee which I think you all have yet to stand up, assist the board in the oversight of the school's risk management program, and you do so chiefly by reviewing the school's annual risk management plan, monitoring adjustments being made to it, and so on and so forth. I'm pleased to tell you that I am making some progress on this, just like I started sort of raising the issue of governance back in 2005. I'm now starting to raise this issue of risk management planning within the sector, and the state of Utah just contracted with me to walk 10 of their schools through a cohort where they're going to implement a systematic risk management plan. I would love to do the exact same thing with you all. All you need to do is give me a green light, and we will get off to the races with it. Madam Chair, I'll be happy to entertain questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Carpenter. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Carpenter about these board committees?
Yes, I have two questions. Dr. Carpenter, when you're talking about source documents, you reference payroll taxes, credit card statements, I assume bank statements. I was wondering if there were some other examples of that. And number two, when I think of risk management, I think of just avoiding lawsuits. Is there something beyond that in risk management?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nicole. The way I teach it, and so some of you, by virtue of your professions, you're familiar with the term ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. Benji, that might be your part of your wheelhouse. It's a concept that's been around. Thousands. So what framework for assessing and mitigating risk. So what has happened in the last 20 years in particular is different ERM frameworks have started to be developed for industries like insurance, manufacturing, the financial industry. But there is no ERM framework for charter schools, which is really unfortunate because it's the risk. It's this. So when I teach it to schools, and I'm actually writing like a crazed madman living in a cave till all hours of the evening, trying to get a book out on this. The way I teach it is a charter school, so specific risks to you. I call it the 3 Ps. There's risks to people, so a student could be injured, bullied, sexually assaulted, possibly killed in a worst case scenario, an active shooter or a gang thing. Or there was a student last year that died of heat stroke because the coach was exercising the kids outside when they shouldn't have been because the heat index was too high. So there's risks to people. They're adults slip and fall, somebody being on campus that's not supposed to be, whatever, hostile work environment in terms of risks to employees. So that can spill into a lawsuit. There's risks to property, so your money can be embezzled, you could be vandalized, your equipment could be stolen if it's not properly secured and tagged and inventoried and all that kind of thing, and that happens with a surprising regularity in charter schools. And then there's risks to your program, which encompasses at least a half a dozen things, but the biggie is the charter itself, meaning that even if parents want the school and even if the academic component of the school is satisfying everybody and even performing well, some risks have in the past precipitated the revocation of the charter. So there's the risk to the program. And then if you think of subcategories into that, I have a client who forfeited about $1 million in special ed money because they weren't properly accounting for it because it's a program fund with its own requirements. So people, property, programs, sometimes lawsuits, sometimes not. And the whole idea of risk management is really putting together a risk management team. Dr. Blackwell would do that. The board would put together a risk management oversight committee, and you start getting those two together. And it's just learning how to go through and using the tools of risk management, like doing a heat map, to assess where your risk priorities are at, and then proactively addressing them before hopefully something gets too far out of control.
Great question, Nicole. Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. Any other questions? Thank you as always, Dr. Carpenter, for your micro training. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we will move on to correspondence from our authorizer, Dr. Blackwell. Do you have anything to report?
Not at this time.
Great, thank you very much. So then we'll move into your superintendent report.
Good evening, everybody. I am pleased to report that tonight I am not asking anything from you. I don't need board approval on anything. So I will start with that because I know last month it was a lot. I referenced last month our ADM and wanted to let you know that we did have a final ADM of 889. Our budget was for 925. And Mr. Williams just let me know just a little bit ago that he received word that they have entered into negotiations with Cooper, or that should happen very quickly if it didn't start today. So we are hopeful that there will be a budget. We are hopeful that that will include a hold harmless clause for charter schools. We will not know until that is passed. So I think the timeline on that, the last we had heard was mid to late October. So hopefully this time next month, I'll be able to share some more information with you about whether we're going to be able to have that in place or not. If it does become put into the budget, our budget would be calculated at 932. So that would actually give us a surplus. Again, I will let you all know whenever I know. Hopefully this time in our October meeting, there'll be more information about that. The other item I wanted to talk about was our accreditation review. We will enter into our formal accreditation review on Monday. That will last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So October 4th, 5th, and 6th. That will consist of, I will give a presentation to the interview and to the Accreditation Engagement Review Board. They will then have scheduled interviews with parents and with staff and students and the admin team. And so at the end of that process on Wednesday afternoon, they will give us their report and their findings. So I am again hoping that this time next month, I will be presenting to you some favorable responses to our accreditation review. It was a tremendous effort on the part of the entire team to compile copious amounts of information, analyze data, and we had a timely submission. So everything is good. We're above board and ready for next week. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was that we did have a remote learning day on September the 10th, K-12 across all of the campus. And that was for us to have a deep cleaning. We were also kind of test driving, if you will, the remote learning day schedule, which consisted of scheduled classes in the morning and then afternoon review sessions so that students could get one-to-one and small group instruction with their teachers. And we asked for feedback from the staff and we asked for feedback from the families. And overall, the feedback was very positive. I'm going to share that on our COVID dashboard so it can all be public for our families. But essentially, I compiled a couple of things that I can show you this evening. And I went in ahead and zoomed in, so hopefully you all can see it fairly well. How's that? Can you see it?
Yeah, that looks good. Thank you.
Okay. So we had 175 responses, and it was a short survey, minimal questions, and here are some screen grabs of some of the information that we received. 82.3% said that they had no challenges accessing the platforms that we use here at Noose. Of the 175 responses, 79.4% said that their child was able to complete all of the assigned work on that day. In terms of responsiveness from the staff, we had 47% agree that their teachers responded quickly to log in help if they needed it. But then we also had 15.9% who didn't have any need for any help. So that speaks to the work that was done ahead of time to help everyone get what they needed. The amount of work that was assigned was appropriate. 76% agreed with that. The remote learning experience was positive. 64.6% agreed, 25% were neutral, and 10% disagreed. And then just some comments that I pulled out from the last question on the survey, which was share with us anything you would like. A lot of comments were made about appreciating that there was some communication prior to the event and that they appreciated the teachers kind of checking in with them. The 5th grade team was highlighted. Another example was things went very smoothly. It's a great way to end the week. The Google Meets went very smooth. So just some common themes running through here. Also, I thought this one was great, that Miss Moore is amazing. She logged in with the kids. She taught all morning. The teachers were incredibly patient. It went very smoothly. The 3rd grade team is awesome. So just a couple of shout outs in there and some highlights. And then from the staff, we had 48 responses. And between the successful and satisfactory, 95.8% of our staff rated it one or the other. Did they offer a help session for their families? This was not required of them, but many of them did that just to make sure everyone was good to go. 40% of them did that. Did they offer afternoon help sessions? Almost 90% of them offered afternoon help sessions. The ones who didn't, their classes weren't designed for that. So that number makes sense for us. And then for those that did, that 90%, were they well attended? And this is an area of growth for us. About 62.5% said that their afternoon help sessions were not well attended. So again, we've got some work to do there in promoting that space and those opportunities. And then some feedback from the staff was, it was a good schedule. They liked the afternoon sessions because those who couldn't or didn't join in the morning were able to come in the afternoon and they just retaught the lesson. They were set up in 30 minutes, but the recommendation was that we add a little bit longer because it goes really fast. And then, of course, they had a great day, but they enjoyed teaching face-to-face much more. And to that, I would say, we certainly appreciate the support of our school community and allowing us that day to fine-tune those processes. But it is without a doubt our goal that we have our school open and our kids on campus learning. So I wanted to clarify that because in some of the comments it was, asking what we could do differently, and some of the answers were don't do remote learning. So just making sure everyone is aware that that is not our intention. That was in place so that if and when we have to switch, we're ready to go. So that was the third thing, but I wanted to just very quickly share two additional highlights. We are having a collaborative event on October 29th. It is a collaborative effort between our school, the boosters, and the parent ambassadors. And it is our fall festival. It'll be from 3:30 to 7:30 that Friday. We made it right at the end of the day so the kids could stay and enjoy, and we'd have a lot of turnout for our kids. But the band is going to have their first live performance. Cheerleading's going to be there. We're going to have a t-shirt for sale that has been created by one of our students. We are just really excited about it. It's coming together beautifully. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, but you are all invited to come at some point that evening and see what we have been up to. We would love, love, love for you to come visit. And the other thing is that the student government has a new president, and that is Mr. Tommy Knowles. President Knowles and I met today, and we are working on a plan that would allow him to come and share with you at some board meetings, and we will have that plan in place for you in October. So just want to let you all know he is on board and he is eager and he is excited, and we are excited for him. So that concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Do any board members have questions for Dr. Blackwell? hearing none, let me just say thank you, thank you, thank you to you and your team for everything. I know the accreditation preparation and research and all of that has been a heavy, heavy lift. And I know that's got to feel good to have that behind you. Feel confident that your presentation will be amazing. But please let your team and everyone at the school who helped with that know that we are very appreciative of everything they did to put together all of the documentation that we know is required for that. And we're excited about the Fall Festival. That sounds amazing. And congratulations to President Knowles. That's we'll look forward to hearing from him hopefully at next month's meeting. So thank you again, Dr. Blackwell, for that report. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, next on the agenda, Benji, the financial report.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Finance Committee met on Wednesday, September the 15th. We discussed the August budget report, as well as the changes to North Carolina law regarding the timing of the payment from the local funds to charter schools. So we addressed both of those topics. For the, since that, we got the final budget report for the 2021 fiscal year. Wanted to go over that as well. Just the main highlight from it, no major changes, but we did achieve a surplus of $310,743.30. So that is some good news for us financially as well. For the month of August, the budget report there, our total revenue for the month was $624,810.43. Our expenses for the month were $633,349.85, giving us a deficit of $8,539.42. And that deficit is due to timing, like we talked about before, and not receiving those payments from the local education authorities. And lastly, just to talk about the ending budgets for August. This is as of August the 31st. Our operating account balance was $1.1 million, almost $1.2 million. The savings account balance, $853,437. And adding those two of the larger accounts plus two smaller accounts that we have, total cash on hand is $2,120,936.34. So that's our total cash as of the end of the month. And that is it for the Finance Committee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Benji.
Benji,
oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jane. Will you repeat that surplus number for the fiscal year? I thought that was noteworthy.
Okay. Surplus for the fiscal year, that is $310,743.30.
Any other questions for Benji? All right, thank you, Benji, for that. And we're going to move on to our standing committee reports. Again, as a brief reminder, many of these committees have been paused as we're working on revising our bylaws to incorporate committees like Dr. Carpenter recommended in his micro training. So our executive committee did not meet. Our finance committee, we just heard their report. Our academic affairs committee did not meet. Paul, our resource development committee, did you all meet? Oh, you're muted.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. No, but I did have a meeting with Dr. Blackwell and also Emily Harris, and got a briefing on the cap dev work, and I think we're going to have a brief on that here in this meeting. So
great, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Board development, Michelle.
Yes, I'm here. I'm barely here, but I'm here. the Board Development Committee did meet on August the 31st and September the 17th. We reviewed additional revisions and finalized changes to the bylaws. And in our report, I put the link to those bylaws. The bylaws have already been shared with all of the board members, so you already have access to those. But I put the link in there as a reminder to where the bylaws are. Since they have been finalized, at this point, I believe they are probably ready to be voted on. So what I would like for all board members prior to our October meeting is to review those and make any comments or suggestions. You will notice in there, after much struggle as a committee on dealing with the issue of term limits, based on the recommendation of Attorney Gil Middlebrooks, we took those term limits out. We struggled with those quite a bit. But in any event, I wanted to let you know that because I know that was some discussion that we had had. So those are ready for board member review.
Great, thank you so much. Does
Jane, I would
anybody
just
have
add,
questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I would just add as a member of the committee, just to reiterate what Michelle said about term limits. Term limits sound good in theory, but they're very hard to implement. So we would love your feedback on that issue. So just keep that in mind, please.
Great. Yeah, I know we've had a lot of discussion about that in the past, and I know from the comments in the draft of the bylaws that those were really challenging, not only to figure out what they should be, but how to implement them, as you said. And so it sounds like that's what Mr. Middlebrooks was saying as well, and that's sounds like that's why he recommended not having them. So
that was his recommendation, and that was one of the reasons, and also had to do with continuity.
Right, that continuity is a good thing, right? So, okay, perfect. All right, so if everyone, you should still have access to the Google Doc that has the bylaws. It should be one of the shared documents. If not, and honestly, Jennifer and Jason especially, let us know if you guys if you don't see that in your shared documents. I'm not sure whether we've gone back and added you because it was shared before you joined the board. So I want to make sure everybody has access to that this month so that you can review it and make any comments or questions that you might have in preparation for us hopefully voting on that at next month's meeting. Okay. All right. Our standing strategic planning committee did not meet. I have not yet seen, I know Robbie was supposed to be late. I've not yet seen him join. Dr. Blackwell, do you know if his facilities committee met?
We did. We met, he and I met with Mr. Bunner last week, and we reviewed some long-term maintenance plans for some of the appliances, if you will, on systems on campus. So it was a very brief meeting, but it was a touch base because we hadn't had a chance to do that in a little bit. So nothing of significance to report.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to our ad hoc committees. Benji, our strategic planning ad hoc committee, we do have something under unfinished business for that with the discussion of changing the or adding the academic deep dive meetings that we left as unfinished business from last month. But outside of that, does the strategic planning ad hoc committee have anything to report?
No, ma'am, that is it. And I think that's tied up with the bylaws as well. If we reduce that number of meetings, the required number of meetings, so we do still want to talk about those things. Academics are important. We need to be talking about those. So just need to revisit once we had the bylaws approved.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. We'll leave that under unfinished business. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I know one of the questions that was brought up at the last board meeting was the number of required meetings under our existing bylaws that we're currently operating under. That number is 8. The new bylaws are drafted to require 6. And of course, if anyone has any comments or feedback on that, welcome that as well.
Okay, great. So I think what Benji's saying is if we wait until after we approve the new bylaws, then we can set a new cadence for the meetings. I think if I remember correctly, Benji, oh, go ahead.
The first one was supposed to be in October, was what the recommendation was, to cover the information we got back a few weeks ago, the integrated testing and everything there. So that was the first cadence-wise, was the month of October for the first one.
Okay, so if we hold off on voting to change that, obviously next month is October.
Right.
Is that something that potentially, Dr. Blackwell, you could incorporate into your superintendent's report? Maybe not quite as deep a dive as if it were a standalone meeting, but I think that would be helpful. Do you agree, Benji?
Oh yeah, we should be talking about academics all the time.
Right, but I'm saying like since we aren't going to vote on having just a standalone academic deep dive, if she focuses intently on that in that October meeting, I think that would be helpful.
That would be helpful. That would be good.
Okay. Does that work, Dr. Blackwell?
Yeah, that's actually been the plan for me for a couple of months. I've been planning for that October data meeting, so
Okay.
so I'm good with that.
Okay, perfect. And if you have questions, I'm sure you can ask offline to Benji or any of the other committee members for that ad hoc committee.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Benji. All right, the Systematic Oversight Calendar Ad Hoc Committee. Nicole, anything to report on there?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. Paul, our Policy Committee, anything to report on there for that ad hoc committee?
So we provided the some of the policy information to Brad Ward for the accreditation, and so that was a piece of that. Coordinated some with Dr. Blackwell and Brad on that. So and then hopefully there may be some, we can try to get into some of those, and we talked about how we wanted to revise them in a way so that they can be, I guess, codified into more of a master document. So that's part of that. It's just like bylaws. It's been on, we have bylaws meetings and then this. So.
Well, I appreciate it. It sounds like we're making progress there, and codifying that into one document sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, and Dr. Blackwell pointed out some actions that we've taken on that. So I think we're down the road a little bit on that.
Great, thank you so much. And keeping you on the hot seat, we're moving on to unfinished business and the motions log.
I carry it with me everywhere I go. It's in Milwaukee this week. But really, actually, I did some work on it over the weekend. It's like you sit down and do a few meetings at a time and find them. So the tough ones are the ones that aren't scanned and recognized as words where you can't find it. So just keep on working through it.
Well, appreciate you plugging away at that and trying to get that. I know that we are getting closer and closer. So we will celebrate when that is complete.
I'm trying to looking at 2025 right now, I think. So.
Well, hey, some things take longer than others.
Hey, you got an end date there. Yeah.
There you go. We're good. We're good. All right. And our strategic planning ad hoc committee, we are not going to take any possible action under unfinished business. So we will move on to new business. Under new business, the first item on the agenda is attorney engagement. I put this on the agenda because Rodney and Benji both asked me and had concerns about our engagement letter with Gil Middlebrooks and whether it was clear if he was our contract attorney in general, if it was a general sort of unrestricted ongoing engagement, or if it was a more restricted engagement that was specific to one individual matter. And so I felt that was important for us to discuss and clarify as a board. I definitely want to make sure that legal counsel, if any, is that we're all clear as a board. So I reached out to Mr. Middlebrooks, and he did state that legally, as a matter of contract law and based on the course of conduct that has happened since February of 2019, when that initial engagement letter was signed and executed, that both the matter of the contract based on contract law and our course of action as a school indicate that it is an ongoing, unrestricted engagement of his services. I have uploaded the executed agreement and the minutes from our February 2019 board meeting that show where the board voted unanimously to approve the recommendation of the executive committee, which was to hire Mr. Middlebrooks. But again, I want to make very, very clear that what his services represent, that he is our contract attorney, that is an ongoing and unrestricted engagement until or unless, just like anything else, and in any other kind of legal engagement, until or unless we change that. So just to clarify things and to make sure that we are crystal clear in our reporting and our recording, I move to affirm Gil Middlebrooks as News Charter School contract attorney with an unrestricted ongoing engagement as executed and signed in February of 2019. Do I have a second?
A second.
This is Michelle.
Oh, okay. I think Nicole, did you second?
I did, but Jane, just to make sure I get the motion correct, you said to affirm Gil Middlebrooks as NCS contract attorney
with an unrestricted ongoing engagement as stated in the executed agreement from February of 2019.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I will open the floor for discussion from board members. Anyone, please feel free to contribute to the discussion about affirming Mr. Middlebrooks as our contract attorney.
Yeah, so let me just make sure I understand, because I looked at the original contract. Are you saying that there's verbiage in the contract that says it was a perpetual contract? Because it originally said it was for one specific issue. I'm confused.
If you look at the language, and like I said, I spoke with Mr. Middlebrooks. The first sentence that you're speaking about is is him referring to why we reached out. But the rest of the document, including the rest of that first paragraph, if you have it open, it's in your shared folder for tonight's meeting. The last sentence in that first paragraph says, "This letter will govern the relationship between my firm and News Charter School of Johnston County," and the rest of it is a general engagement letter. It is not a limited engagement letter based on contract law. The rest of that is a general engagement letter, and based on our course of action, News Charter School has requested his services on an ongoing basis since this was signed in February of 2019. As recently as last week, we have engaged his services. So based on both contract law and the wording of this full letter, and on the course of action of News Charter School, and on the understanding of Mr. Middlebrooks as an attorney, this letter is a general unrestricted engagement letter, despite the fact that the first sentence is about the something that they spoke about on the phone.
Okay, I understand. So that clears up that confusion. I just think it's I I'm not a fan of unrestricted open contracts for a school. I think we should always periodically do like an RFP process, socialize for services, just to be fiscally and prudently responsible. That's why I was asking the question. So in that regard, I think we should revisit the legal counsel we would use. We don't have any other contract that's open and standing that we don't actually do that on some fixed periodic basis.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And this is Michelle. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just going to say, typically when you have legal services, it is a very common thing, particularly with businesses, that you have an open engagement letter like that. So, for example, I might need the services of the attorney for one issue, but then the next week I may have another issue that comes up that I want to go back to that same attorney. So it's a customary type thing. Usually if an attorney is going to limit the representation, it's very, very specific, because the attorney is going to protect themselves so that there is no confusion about the attorney's representation, that they are very specific in their engagement letter, that I'm only representing you for this specific matter and under this specific term. So it is a customary type of legal service contract.
Yeah, I remember that specific discussion on when we actually voted to hire them at the time, and there was, from the broader board, I specifically remember there was little to no real due diligence around. We kind of just trusted what was brought forward, and it was kind of the heated moment of that particular issue. I just think it would be good, responsible practice that we would review it and kind of reevaluate the market around those services.
And certainly, Rodney, I think as in an email string with you, like I said, if you or the Financial Oversight Committee or anyone thinks that it's important that we do that, that's absolutely something that you can bring to the board, make a motion to do, that we could review things on a periodic basis, on an annual basis. That's absolutely something that could be done if the board as a whole chooses to do so. Other thoughts? Yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, I just, as Rodney was talking, I understand the concern, and I could see a situation by which, I think the limitations need to be more on us than on him, because, I can think of a situation by which, okay, so I have a legal question, I call him. Benji has a legal question, he calls him. And so, we're all independently just racking up bills or racking up hours. So, I see the fiscal concern, and I think it's reasonable. So we might want to put some parameters on ourselves versus, does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think we're missing my point. My point was, I distinctly remember voting at that moment for that legal counsel on that particular issue. What I'm saying now is, if we're saying that we're now voting on something that is going to be open and perpetual, which I'm telling you, I wasn't under the impression when we voted last time, but based on how we've actioned, whatever, it's become that. I'm simply saying, I think we as a collective board should just redo a more formal, broad-based process to hire legal counsel, if that's what we decide to do, from a more due diligence perspective. That's all I'm saying. I'm voting on something that I haven't done any research or knowledge on. That's all I'm saying. So we're saying we can something that nobody's really done any research or knowledge on, I'm aware of. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, the alternative, are you saying that we should hire general counsel versus
No, I'm just saying we go through a bit more formal process to define what it is we're looking for, what are the pros and cons of whatever we would hire, and then we actually go solicit process who would render those services. And that's all we're just
so Rodney, again,
person, and I'm like, what? I don't know how to vote yes or no, but I don't know anything about this individual, their qualifications, their history. I just don't know anything. So it's not that I'm against it or for it. I just don't know.
So great points, really good points. A couple of things. One is that as soon as the board is finished asking questions and making their comments. I intend to ask Dr. Blackwell because she has worked closely with him. There are other board members who have worked closely with him that I think could highlight their impressions of him over the last 2+ years as our contract attorney, that should help to shed some light on the questions that you're asking. And certainly, this is why, I think that the letter itself was based on what you said, you misunderstood, or the full board, I'm not sure, misunderstood. As I said, all the minutes say is that it was unanimously approved by the full board based on the executive committee's recommendation. And that's why I wanted to affirm that he is in fact our contract attorney. And then if at a later date you would like to introduce a motion for us to do an RFP, or you'd like to introduce a motion for us to do some other kind of due diligence, I absolutely think that you absolutely have the right to do that. But that's not something that we can decide necessarily tonight with that. The motion right now is about affirming this based on the letter that was executed by the school, that was voted and approved by the board, to clarify and affirm what that actually was, because obviously there's clarification needed. So
okay,
yeah,
that's the difference.
Jane, this is Michelle. One of the things I can remember about this, because at the time, I know I was on the board at the time, and I think Nicole was on the board as well, and we were two attorneys on the board. And the thing that I can remember very vividly about this was being very excited that we were engaging an attorney for various different things. It was not just this one thing or this one issue that we had looked at, but we were engaging an attorney that we would have on contract that we could go to with questions. And so, because as an attorney on the board, it's not right for me to be asked certain questions and have to respond to those, because it seems as though I'm giving legal advice. And same thing with Nicole as well. So I would just remember being excited about having that engagement letter.
okay, thank you, Michelle. Other thoughts, questions, board members who were here at the time, if you have recollections, or if anyone has any other questions or comments specifically about the letter of engagement or the motion.
I think Dr. Carpenter has his hand raised.
I apologize, Dr. Carpenter. I did not see that. You have the floor, sir. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I try not to interject unless I think it's necessary. I think here's a teachable moment on procedure, and only procedure. So I'm not making any comment or inference about the matter before the board. I'm only addressing the board procedurally. So you have a motion and a second on the table, and you, as you properly did, you call for discussion. A board member who wishes to alter that motion can properly introduce an amended motion. So, for example, a board member might say, I move to amend that motion that we do an RFP, for example, right? And so then what happens is procedurally that amendment gets seconded and then voted on. And when the amendment is properly disposed of, is the language, you then return to what's called the main motion, which was the motion that you introduced that was seconded.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. It's always good for us to make sure that we're following Robert's rules and procedures. Other comments, thoughts before I ask Dr. Blackwell for her perceptions and experience with Mr. Middlebrooks as our contract attorney? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Blackwell, can you share your experiences and perception of Mr. Middlebrooks as our attorney that you've worked with since you've been on board?
Sure. Well, I have worked with him since I came on board last May. My first interaction with him was whenever I realized that we needed to have general counsel review the handbooks that hadn't been done, that needed to happen. And my experience with him has been, he's been really quick with his responses to me. If I've emailed him and asked him for a call or for a meeting, he's been very quick to respond and let me know when he could meet. And it's normally that day or the next morning, depending on when I ask for it. He's helped tremendously with COVID. He's reviewed our policies, a lot of our staffing hiccups that we've had. We have relied on him for his direction and his expertise. And he's also very well versed in charter schools, charter law. He's very well versed in that. And that's quite comforting most days to know that when we're working with him, that he's been in that world. He's worked with OCS. He's represented OCS. And so it lends a lot of credibility from my perspective in this role, that when I call him, I know he's going to respond and he's going to provide as much timely and accurate information as he can. So that's my experience with him.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do know from talking with him, Rodney, to sort of also add a little bit more about his background that will hopefully help, is that he represents a lot of charter schools. He represents private and public schools as well, but he has, as Dr. Blackwell said, he has a lot of experience in charter schools, in charter school law, and when he works in education law, he only represents schools. So he is very well versed in that, which is why I think I wasn't part of all of this, but I think that's why he was originally selected. Okay, any other comments before we move, or questions before we move to vote? Okay, hearing none, I will call the roll to vote on affirming Gil Middlebrooks as News Charter School contract attorney. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Rodney?
Opposed.
Jason?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Robbie? I don't know if he's joined. I don't think he has. Okay. Benji?
Opposed?
Paul?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. The ayes have it. We have affirmed Gil Middlebrooks as the News Charter School contract attorney. Okay, moving on to the next order of new business, our mask policy. As I know you all remember, last month we voted to require masks through the end of December. And since then, Governor Cooper has mandated that school boards across the state vote on their mask policy monthly. So our mask policy will show up under new business as long as that mandate is in place. So I will entertain a motion regarding our mask policy.
Jane, I'll make a motion that our mask policy continue for 30 days or the next month, and just repeating that masks are required indoors and not outdoors for all folks on campus. That wasn't stated very well, sorry.
That's okay. Basically, you're just saying that the policy we voted on last time, your motion is to continue that until the next board meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Any discussion?
So, yeah, I've got a question. So I'm just unclear. Is it whether or not we wear masks, is that the only thing that we have to vote on as a board? Like none of the broader implementations regarding COVID containment, prevention, et cetera?
That my understanding is that the mandate requires that boards vote on mask policy, and outside of that, The other recommendations are in the strong schools, and recommendations and requirements are in strong schools. Dr. Blackwell, is that your understanding? Sorry, you're not on my screen, so I can't see you.
Yeah, the SB 654 says specifically that school boards must vote every month on a mask mandate policy. It does not say anything about the Strong Schools Toolkit and any of the other recommended and required processes and protocols that are contained in that document. But SB 654 outright says boards have to vote on masks every month.
And it wasn't that ratified by the legislature and signed by the governor?
It was.
Well, it's state law.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question. I want to make sure we're not inadvertently missing something we legally have to adhere to, because when this came before us in the beginning, right, we spent a lot of time about what do we have to follow? Do we have to follow the healthcare guide, the local health department guidance? So we have to configure the school kit, because there's a legal implication to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's really crazy that we are mandated to vote on a mask, but nothing else matters, right? So that's why I'm just wanting to clarify that there's not something else we need to make sure we follow.
As I recall, the intent of the law was to require that mandates be re-examined every 30 days so that a school board could not mandate and it just go on and on and on. And so, as I understand it, it was a condition that, the legislature and the governor agreed to it, that if there was a mask mandate, it would then come back for renewal by virtue of that. I don't think that if you don't have one, like when we get beyond this, and there isn't one when we're well one day, hopefully, this would not come back. We don't have to agree to not wear a mask every month for the rest of our being. So
I do think that right now every school board has to vote on whether or not they have whether they are going to have a mask mandate policy or not. I don't think it's just for people that have had a mandate, but I do think that my guess is that when we get through all of this, as you said, that the law will probably be taken off the books so that we won't have to do it every month after that. Sorry, Rodney, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I'm just trying to understand legally what we're required to do right now, which clearly we got to vote on that. But more importantly, like what is the path out of this potentially, and when? I mean, are we going to be prepared in next month? We have a little bit more of a deep dialogue about like the data, the science, like kind of where we're at with, rates, what's happening at the school to consider saying no mask any longer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what this discussion is, right? So we have a motion on the table, and this is the time to discuss whatever we need to discuss before we vote on whether, as a board, whether we want to continue the mask mandate or not.
Yeah. Jane, I'd just like to add, in regards to the governor, what he mandated is part of his emergency order, which, it's not a law, but under the statute, he's allowed to do that in a emergency, in an emergent situation that involves public health. But in regards to what Rodney's comments, I don't think every month we should just blanket renew this. I think we should look at the data, look at what things are happening. I'm hearing some encouraging, knock on wood, kind of things about hopefully not a spike this winter, and that hopefully we will get rid of masks, because that's the goal. Nobody wants that. But, as far as us doing our own independent research, I really do feel like we have to rely on those who are, specialists in this area and experts in this area. But I haven't heard any new information in regards to masks. I don't know if anybody else has, but
The only information that I've heard, and this was shared with me by our attorney Gil Middlebrooks, is that there was a study done that said that let me see what he said because I have it written down. That recently done that said that there are 2/3 fewer cases of COVID in schools with mask requirements versus schools with optional masks right now, based on a study that he saw. And I did not write down the study, so I can reach out to him if anybody would like that.
I was going to ask. I was curious about the dates on that study for sure.
It was recently. He said he just saw it either this week or last week, but I can reach out to him and share that with the board. I apologize for not getting more details on that.
Yeah, please do.
I will. Yeah.
Have we had any confirmed cases of transmission at school? And then how many students have we quarantined?
That is on the dashboard.
Yeah. Rodney, I was just looking at that. So there's 3 total confirmed cases and 21 folks in quarantine.
Current.
And those are current. Those are current numbers.
That's current numbers.
Do we know how many would have been quarantined if there was an optional mask mandate?
I can certainly get that information. I can also get you the total number we've quarantined since the start of the year. I can get you the total number of cases since the start of the year, but I do not have that right now.
Yeah. And I don't know that would give us a look of trends if you just look at the total from the beginning. It's in looking at the North Carolina COVID dashboard. I mean, we're a month into football season where there are 70,000 folks stacked elbow to elbow with no mask, and I would have thought we would have had a huge spike by now. And if you look at the dashboard, the number of cases and the number of hospitalizations are actually going down right now. So again, very interesting trends that we're seeing based on everything that's going on. But it does concern me still that how many more cases or how many more quarantines would we have to close down based on what trends we've got?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the big issue that I think we kind of skirted over when we started this discussion with the passion and adrenaline running so high was it's really not about the mask or not. It's about who determines when someone has to quarantine. That's the biggest effect on the school, right? Because if you just have a positive case and somebody shows up and they said they were close to somebody and you don't have a mask and you say everybody in the class, that's what everybody freaked out about, which I understand. And then we come to, well, you got to be with 3 feet within them for 15 minutes without masks. So that just limits your scope of exposure, right? And
yeah,
so,
but Dr. Blackwell was going off of like state guidelines on that one, on tracing wise, I think, and that got a lot different with the Delta variant than it did from the original one.
Right, and that's why I was saying parts of that are law that we have to follow. That's exactly what I was getting at, Jason.
And also, that is a school level decision that we voted on as a board. That Dr. Blackwell would deal with that on a regular, like the daily kind of how that is administered. And so I just want to make sure we're staying above the line on that.
And it's relevant to whether or not you mask is relevant to what we're legally requiring for a quarantine policy.
No, I understand. I'm just saying in terms of what we're voting on, that's a school level kind of thing in terms of the day-to-day, how the quarantine situation is handled. Okay. All right. Just clarifying.
So can I just one thing to interject that I was looking at Senate Bill 654 that was ratified and signed by the governor, and it's basically a session law. And it goes in and it says section 10, it says for the 21-22 school year, all public school units shall adopt a policy regarding the use of face coverings by employees and students. The governing body of the public school unit shall vote at least once a month on whether the face covering policy should be modified. So that's it. And so it's only for this year. That sunsets. It's a session law.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, Paul. That's really helpful. I think that speaks exactly to what Rodney was asking, which is what are we legally required to vote on? So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Other comments? Obviously, I want to make sure that we have plenty of robust dialogue on this before we go to a vote.
I would just ask a question to Dr. Blackwell. I think initially going into this, the issue of quarantine and who quarantines and who doesn't, there was a little bit of a learning curve there. Dr. Blackwell, do you feel like, you all have gotten a better kind of handle on that, and parents and everybody understands those, those requirements a little better?
Well, when I presented last month about kind of how we were doing and some of the struggles we had faced, I did mention that we were dealing with some significant challenges on all levels. It does feel like it has stabilized. I would not say that it has decreased. I would say it has stabilized. When we first started, day 1 and 2 were fantastic. And then from day 3 on, it was just all hands on deck. Everybody's doing everything they can. There's also constant change. We're getting constant updates and direction. And I would say we have a really good handle on it. We've got processes in place that can quickly notify families. It's very detailed. Our families are adjusting to it. And I am very, very grateful and thankful for that. I think we're learning that there's no bad guy, and that we're really ultimately just trying to keep these kids safe and in school.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Other questions, comments before we vote? Okay, hearing none, I will call the roll to vote on continuing the mask policy as it currently stands until next month's board meeting. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Rodney?
Opposed.
Jason?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Robbie, did you join? I think. Let me see. Robbie, you're muted if you tried to say something. I see you in the meeting, but I can't hear you. Okay. Robbie just texted me opposed because for some reason we can't hear him. Thank you, Robbie. Benji?
Opposed.
And Paul?
Aye.
And I will also vote aye. I will, so that motion carries. The mask policy is continued until next month's board meeting. Okay, moving back to our agenda, ongoing board development and self-assessment. We don't have anything for that. We do need closed session. So I will entertain a motion to move into closed session for personnel discussion pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. And thank you for that second. I will now call the roll to vote for going into closed session. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Rodney?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Robbie?
Aye.
I can hear you. Yay. Benji?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
Okay, I will see everybody in closed session. Thank you. Let's see, do we have everybody? I think we have everybody except Michelle, and she's having issues with her internet. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the personnel recommendations made by Dr. Blackwell in closed session.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will call the roll to vote on the personnel recommendations. Nicole.
Aye.
Michelle, I don't think she's here, but Rodney. Oh, you were muted. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Jason.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Robbie.
Aye.
Benji.
Aye.
And Paul.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. The personnel recommendations have been approved. I will now entertain a motion to approve the recommendations for the superintendent bonus structure made by the ad hoc evaluation committee.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. It's Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie. I will go through and call the roll on this motion. Nicole.
Aye.
Rodney. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Jason. Oh, you were muted.
Dang. Almost made it through without forgetting.
I know. Thank you. Jennifer.
Aye.
Robbie.
Aye.
Benji.
Aye.
And Paul.
Aye.
Wonderful. Okay. Having completed the agenda for the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting for September 28th, 2021, I hereby adjourn this meeting at 7:45 p.m. Thank you all very much for your service and for your contributions. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.